So we're going to look at a sample problem related to Microsoft Excel and the growth project that we talked about today in class. Just a brief introduction here. Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets are very similar in the way they operate. And so I'm going to use Google Sheets partially because it is available to everyone for free. All you have to have is a Gmail account. And there's several ways you can get to it. I use it often enough that I just type in sheets.google.com. No HTTP or anything else needed. So just type in sheets.google.com. And if you haven't used it before, you won't have any sheets showing up down here. But you can start a new sheet up here by just clicking blank. And I'm going to sort of tab back and forth between these two, the sample project that I'm going to do here. So I'm going to call this the sample growth decay project for Math 88. And the nice thing you can see here, it says all changes saved in Drive. Your Google Drive is where your files are stored, and you can store a lot of other things there, pictures and whatnot, and your Gmail uses up some of that space. But it's a sort of a free, basically 16 gig online flash drive. So what we want to do for this project, pop this out here, and we'll view these top and bottom here. What we want to do for this is we want to look at this example here. An investment of $500 is made in 2016. Predict the value in the year 2025. One of the things that we run into when we try to use an explicit formula that's a difficulty sometimes is when we talk about the year that we're working with. So, working with Excel here, I'm going to go ahead and go down and let me just briefly talk about Google Sheets again. Again, very similar to Excel. This is a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets have sheets in them, worksheets. So right now I'm on sheet 1. I'm just going to call this, I can double click on it and hit sample. Same thing goes in Excel. I can do add sheet, and I can call it sheet 2. I'll go back over here to sample. And so in a spreadsheet, every cell is labeled with a column and a row. So it's sort of the address that points to that cell. And so this one here, it would be the cell A1. Down below it would be A2, and we could go down that column A through whatever, basically. And in Google Sheets, it starts off with 1,000 rows. We won't need that in this class. And then the year, I'm going to start with 2016 is I think what I said I was going to have on this one. Let's size that back down. And so we're going to make this investment in 2016. And I type that in A2. And as you type, it sometimes will tell you sort of what cell you're in. And what I want to do is, rather than typing in multiple values in a cell, what I can do is I can say equals the previous cell plus 1. And what that's going to do is it's going to increment the year by 1. If we wanted to increase it by 4 years, we could add 4 instead. But you can see the formula here. It says equals A2, so that's the address of the previous cell, plus 1. And that equal sign is crucial. That tells Excel that we've got a formula going in there. And then here I asked to predict it till 2025. Now, when you're working in a spreadsheet, size this back up again here. When you're working in a spreadsheet, rather than, well, there's several different ways we can click and drag. And sometimes it can be frustrating when you're getting used to it, so I just want to talk about that briefly. If I want to select cells, then I can click in one cell and hold down the mouse key and drag down. That will allow me to select a range of cells. So let's say I wanted to copy and paste things, or if I wanted to color it in with some different colors, then I can do that. So I have some color options here, or I can add a grid border to it. We also have the option to click in a cell, and then if I'm hovering on this outside blue line, well, didn't work there. If I'm hovering, in this case, over the cell, then in some cases, it's not letting me do it here. it'll let me drag it and move it, and it's frustrating sometimes when it does happen and you don't want it. Oh, there we go. So I can click on the top of it actually here, and that blue, top blue, and I can drag that over there. And just like in any other program almost, we can hit undo and undo what we did. The nice thing with Google Sheets is it does keep a copy of everything you've ever done in that file. So when you look at the history, sometimes you can go back and undo things if you screw something up. So what I want to do though, the last type of click and drag, so I can click and drag and select, I can click and drag and move. The last kind is to click and copy a formula. So this bottom right hand corner here, we have this little blue square. If I click on it and I drag that down, then we wanted to go all the way down through 2025. So that's where we wanted to end. I'm just going to select these cells, click and select, and I can right click and do delete cells, or I can there's an option somewhere to clear, and we'll shift left when I delete those. So now we have all the years we needed. And if we look at the problem again here that we're working on, we have two options. An investment of $500 is made in 2016, and we want to look at the value if it increases by 100% per year. So the value of, or sorry, not 100%, but $100 per year. So I'm going to put plus $100 per year in here. And then the next one is going to be the value at plus 13% per year. And so we're starting off with $500 and we're increasing. Now, a lot of people won't like this formatting here, so I'm going to select those two cells again by clicking in one cell and dragging over to the other. And I'm going to click Format and Text Wrapping, and I'll tell it to wrap the text there. And that helps us with the format a little bit. And we're starting at $500, so I'm going to type $500 in here as my starting value. From here, I've got all the other information I need right in front of me. These are now the only two cells where I've actually typed numbers in. Everything else had a formula. And so like down here, 2025 just points back at the previous year. Again, this idea of recursive formulas. And so down on the value for 2017, what I want to do there is I want to add $100 per year. So again, I hit equals, and I click on the value that I want to add it to, so the previous year, and then I add in $100. So I hit plus 100. So the formula is equals the previous cell plus 100. We could type equals B2 plus 100, or just click on the previous cell. And when I hit enter, I've got a 600 there. Now I can click and I can drag this down. The other option actually is to double click the bottom right corner, that little blue box, instead of dragging it down, and it'll automatically autofill down to the bottom of the list to the left of it there. And so we see that by increasing $100 per year, starting in 2016, that we get up to $1,400 in 2025. Now, since my initial value is the same as this one over here, the one in the other column, I'm just going to hit equals 500. Now, the reason I want to do that is that if I ever wanted to change this starting value here, let's say I didn't have $500, I only had $300 to invest, then we could change that and it would change this value as well. Now, since I want to increase by 13% per year, if we start at 500, I'm going to have, again, this previous cell, the previous year, and then times 1.13. And again, what that does is it adds 13% to this 500 here. I can drag this down, and we want to make sure we're pointing at the prior year, not at the value in the other column. So we want to point back to the prior year, so the row above, and then we can take this and we can drag it down. And we see this formula copy on down here. So in the end, this year here points back to just the year before it. And so we have this formula. We don't want to point over the other column, because now what do we have? We have each column describes two different ways of looking at how the investment value is going to increase. Now, these decimals are really messy, and we're looking here at currency. So there's two things we can do. I can go up top here and I can decrease the decimal places, and it sort of messes it up right off the bat. But if I click a couple times, decrease decimal places, then you can see it gets rid of all the decimal places. And most of the time, if we're talking about investments, whole dollar amounts are probably good enough for a good estimate. But since we're talking about currency, you could also just hit the currency button here, and it tells us what's happening here. Now, this is going to give us our scenario. This was our, I'll call this the investment sample. We have this setup here, and again, each value points back at the previous year's value. That's a recursive formula. And so we have, in this case, that. And one of the main reasons this is useful is a lot of times the mathematical formulas that we have to use will be set up where it says something like years since 2016. And you'll see this in a problem a lot of times. And that would mean what? It would mean that what? We would have a formula that would be what? The current year, the year of the model, minus 2016. So when we start out, it would be year 0. And when we go through 2025, that would be year 9. And that's fine, but in some ways it's nicer just to have a listing. Okay, this is what that actually means, year 7, year 8, year 9. Now, I'm going to delete this column. I put it in here just to show you that. If I click on the E up top here, we can click on any of these column titles and select a column, or any row and select a row. But if I click on this column here, and then just right-click on it, then I can just hit Delete Column, and it's gone. It cleans things up quickly that way. Then I ask you to create a scatter plot. And so I'm going to do Insert, and I'm going to hit Chart, and we get this line chart, which gives us a decent picture of what's going on. But a scatter plot is a little bit better because it shows it year by year. And so if I do scatter plot, we get this picture here. I'm going to slide it over to the side, over here, sort of put out of the way there a little bit. And if we look at this, this one starts off, we have a 0 down here on the axis. Then 500 is where the actual number started. And we can see what happens, that right off the bat, the blue one seemed like a little bit better, but the red one, even though it started off slowly, eventually bypassed the blue. And if you wanted to, you can run this out another 50 years and see what happens there. But we get this nice comparison of those two values. So in terms of then making a comment about this, there's a couple ways you can do it. You might want to go up here and hit select some cells and do Format and Merge Cells. And then in that box there, type a description of what happens and say maybe that because the stock market increases by about 13% per year, the 13% model would be better than the $100 per year model. So 13%, maybe 13% growth model is better than $100 per year model. And again, you probably want to wrap the text on that so it's more easy to read there. You can add those in other ways. And then once you have this set up, then you can move on to the next problem down here in sheet 2. And again, you can create that. And these, once you get all 4 of the scenarios worked up, you can either do File, Download as Microsoft Excel. That'll let you download this file so so you can upload it into Canvas. Or if you're in Canvas, you can actually upload it directly from your Google Drive as well. I'll go over that in class tomorrow, but this is just a basic walkthrough tutorial of how to do this. If you have questions, feel free to email or call.